Much as Darth Sidious was the avatar of the dark side, Yoda, the Grand Master of the Jedi Order, was the avatar of the light. This ancient master was not only one of the most well-known Jedi, both in-universe and out-of-universe, but is also representative of what the Jedi strived to be like. Yoda was a wise, powerful being, compassionate but firm, with a deep commitment to justice and a strong connection to the Force. But Yoda isn't without his controversies, and he's also sometimes seen as representative of the Jedi Order's flaws. Both by real-life and in-universe apologists for the dark side, Yoda has been construed as a hypocrite, a blind fool who led the Jedi Order to its death, and an example of problems with the Jedi way. But such criticisms sell Yoda short, and more often than not, they fail to grasp the full breadth of what the old master tried to teach. In this video, we'll be discussing some of the wisdom of Yoda and what the Jedi Order's most famous master can teach us about the path of the light side. With the new year swinging into full gear, I've made a commitment to eat healthier, and Factor 75 has been a total game changer. Their chef-crafted, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals make it so easy to stick to my goals without the stress of meal prep, cooking, or cleanup. Just heat, eat, and get on with your day. Seriously, they're ready in as little as 2 minutes. Skip the overpriced takeout trap. Factor 75 is not only way more delicious, but it's also so much cheaper. Get restaurant-quality meals delivered right to your door, and when life gets busy, Factor makes it easy to adjust. Choose between 4 to 18 meals a week, and you can pause or reschedule deliveries anytime. With over 35 weekly meal options like Calorie Smart, Keto, Protein Plus, and Vegan and Veggie, there's something for everyone. Plus, Factor offers over 60 add-ons like breakfast, snacks, smoothies, and juices to keep you fueled all day. And if you're feeling fancy, check out their Gourmet Plus meals with premium ingredients like filet mignon, shrimp, and truffle butter. And a quick note, by subscribing to Factor using my link, you're not just treating yourself to amazing meals, you're also supporting this channel. It's a win-win. So if you're ready to make 2025 your healthiest year yet, support the channel and treat yourself, get 50% off and free shipping on your first Factor 75 box using my link or using my code GEETJAN50. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code with your phone. So what are you waiting for? Let's make 2025 the year you fuel your body and feel your best. As we usually do with these character studies, before we get too far into things, we'd like to go over our sources. While we'll be quoting a little from the novelization of Revenge of the Sith today, our main source is actually going to be Yoda Dark Rendezvous by Sean Stewart, a Clone Wars era novel that we would argue is the best take on Yoda's character in the Star Wars expanded universe. It's a short book, and it's also one of the EU's best, so we highly recommend you purchase it for yourself and support its author. This video will also be a little different from our usual character studies in that we're not going to be analyzing Yoda as a character here. We might do that at some point, but today we're just looking at a few facets of Yoda and some of the wisdom he had to offer. With that out of the way, let's begin. Yoda served as the Grand Master of the Jedi Order for many long centuries, and in that time, he became known for his wisdom. No Jedi knew the Jedi teachings better, and Yoda was widely seen as the ideal Jedi Master, even if he was a little eccentric. Well, okay, very eccentric. In the films, and across the expanded universe, he shares many teachings with other characters and with the audience, particularly in The Empire Strikes Back, his first appearance, in which he explains the nature of the Force. Many of these teachings are universally well received, but there are a few teaching moments of Yoda's that are a bit more controversial, and we're going to start by taking a look at the most infamous one, the advice Yoda gives to Anakin when he starts having visions of Padme's death. The Revenge of the Sith novelization describes this scene from Anakin's point of view, and we'll now quote the relevant passage. Yoda's voice was still gentle and understanding.
The fear of loss is a path to the dark side, young one.
I won't let my visions come true, Master. I won't.
Rejoice for those who transform into the Force. Mourn them not. Miss them not.
Then why do we fight at all, Master? Why save anybody?
Speaking of anybody, we are not.
Yoda had said sternly.
Speaking of you and your vision and your fear, we are. The shadow of greed, attachment is. What you fear to lose, train yourself to release. Let go of fear, and loss cannot harm you.
Which was when Anakin had realized Yoda wasn't going to be any help at all. The greatest sage of the Jedi Order had nothing better to offer him than more pious babble about letting things pass out of his life. like he hadn't heard that a million times already. Easy for him. Who had Yoda ever cared about? Really cared about? Of one thing, Anakin was certain. The ancient master had never been in love. A lot of fans, much like Anakin himself, brush this advice off, considering it canned platitudes from a detached old monk who has nothing helpful to say. Some people even blame Yoda for causing Anakin's fall to the dark side as a result of this advice. Those that do miss an important point, which is, as we've said before, that Yoda is right. Not only that, but what he tells Anakin is precisely what he needed to hear in that moment, even if Anakin wasn't willing to listen. Anakin was terrified not just of a specific threat to Padmé's life, but the broad possibility of her dying at all. He was afraid of losing her in any circumstance. The thing is, he would lose her eventually, no matter what he did. Regardless of what you think of Jedi philosophy, it's impossible to stop death forever. It's a natural and inescapable part of life. In the face of that, you can either do as Yoda suggested and let go, or you can let your fear of the inevitable devour you from within. Anakin came to Yoda in Revenge of the Sith hoping the old master would offer him another choice, but there was no other choice. Still, Anakin refused to hear that, and that ultimately left him susceptible to someone who was willing to lie to him and tell him that there was. Yoda told Anakin what he needed to hear, but Anakin, already on a path to the dark side and consumed by an inability to accept the reality of the universe, was deaf to it. But all that's besides the point. We're discussing this passage specifically for those last few lines, when an embittered Anakin thinks with certainty that Yoda had never actually cared about anyone, much less felt love. It's not an uncommon view of Yoda. Even many Jedi who knew and respected the old master thought of him as completely detached, an emotionless old monk who had lived a cloistered life and denied himself life's passions. Anakin's response to Yoda's advice to let go is to assume that Yoda has never had to do that he has never felt true loss before. But if you think about that even a little, it falls apart. Someone who's been around for close to 900 years is certainly not going to avoid feeling loss. Quite the contrary. Over the course of his long life, Yoda watched everyone he ever cared about die many times over. He had seen 40 generations of beings with more ordinary lifespans come and go. He cared about people in each of them, and with each passing generation, he would lose them all. Virtually everyone who was alive when Yoda became a Jedi, his friends, teachers, and colleagues alike, all died centuries before the Clone Wars. Yoda loved and lost more people than most people have a chance to even meet in their comparatively brief lives. Over the course of Yoda Dark Rendezvous, the old master loses yet more people he cared about. Over the course of the mission Yoda undertakes in the novel, the Jedi Max Leem and Jai Maruk, whom Yoda had known and cared for throughout their lives, students who grew into colleagues and friends, are killed by Asajj Ventress on Findar. In the wake of their deaths, Yoda organizes an impromptu memorial feast with the slain Jedi's orphaned Padawans, Wee and Scout, to remember Leem and Marok and honor their lives. This enrages Wee, who considers Yoda's reaction to the elder Jedi's deaths to be callous and disrespectful, and in his grief, he says something similar to what Anakin thought to himself in the aforementioned Revenge of the Sith passage. To quote from Dark Rendezvous, and to stop the terrible Yoda impression because it's killing my voice, Yoda set his bowl of gumbo regretfully aside. Hear it working, do you? Hear what? We snapped. The dark side. Always it speaks to us from our pain, our grief. It connects our pain to all pain, our hurt to all hurt. Maybe it has a lot to say. We stared out at the starscape hovering over the projector table. It's so easy for you. What do you care? You're unattached, aren't you? You'll probably never die. What was Max Leem to you? Another pupil. After all these centuries, who could blame you if you could hardly keep track of them? Well, she was more than that to me. She was the closest thing I had to a mother since you took me away from my real mother. She chose me to be her Padawan and I let her down, let her die, and I'm not going to sit here and stuff myself and get over it. Teach me about pain, think you can, Yoda said softly. Think the old master cannot care, Forgotten who I am, have you? Old I am, yes. Loved more than you, have I, Padawan. Lost more, hated more, killed more. The green eyes narrowed to gleaming slits under heavy lids. Dragon eyes, old and terrible. Think wisdom comes at no cost? The dark side, yes, easier it is for them. The pain grows too great, and they eat the darkness to flee from it. Not Yoda. Yoda loves and suffers for it. Loves and suffers. The advice Yoda gave to Anakin to let go was heartfelt and hard-learned. Yoda had little choice but to accept death, to rejoice for those who merged with the Force, even as he himself felt the pain of their loss. But this passage reveals something interesting about this, that Yoda wasn't as dispassionate as many thought him to be, and more importantly, that Yoda didn't consider being dispassionate to be the Jedi way. While the Jedi refused to allow their emotions to control them, they didn't deny them entirely. On the contrary, emotions like compassion were central to a Jedi's life. To be a Jedi didn't mean to reject love. Quite the opposite. It required Jedi to love keenly, to care about other beings and be willing to make sacrifices for them, just not to form attachments that would draw them to the dark side. In fact, Yoda characterizes a refusal to love as the way of the dark side, which drives beings to let their pain consume them so that they will run from it, retreating into selfishness and callousness. The challenge of the Jedi, Yoda contends, is not to feel so as to avoid the pain of loss, but to make the choice to continue loving even after feeling loss, knowing that one's compassion will continue to cause them to suffer. And perhaps no one suffered more in doing this than Yoda did. Yoda was seen by many as an example of what the Jedi were supposed to be like, but in making Yoda into an icon, they often left out a lot of who Yoda actually was. They saw him as the wise old Jedi Master, eternally calm, devoid of attachments and endlessly thoughtful. But Yoda was so much more to that, and so was the Jedi ideal. He lived life fully, and in 900 years, he was able to do a lot more than most beings. He felt the full gamut of emotions, from those conducive to the light side, like love and compassion, to those conducive to the dark side, like anger and even hatred. He felt the call of the dark side, felt loss and pain and even attachment, and he moved past them, all while refusing to lose his compassion, to lose sight of the Force. Yoda was eccentric and clearly enjoyed being weird, and he made many close friendships over the years. He was every Jedi's first master, as he played a major role in the early training of every batch of Jedi initiates, to whom he taught the basics of the Force, and he did this not just because he was among the Order's best teachers, but because he enjoyed being around children and watching them learn and grow. When those younglings grew up and started undertaking more advanced training, Yoda would often play a role in their instruction, and even when they became Padawans and were apprenticed to other masters, even when they became Jedi Knights and masters in their own right, they always knew that they could turn to Yoda for wisdom and guidance. And, of course, Yoda was also a prankster, an eccentric old gremlin with 900 years worth of time-honored quirks. Dark Rendezvous does an especially good job of showing this side of his character. To quote one of our favorite passages from the novel, they'd had their choice of several decent-looking ships, but Master Yoda turned all of them down. Too flashy, too new, too expensive. Expensive? Scout had asked. You can use the credits of the Jedi Temple, can't you? Or the Chancellor's office for that matter. Yoda's face had sucked in and his ears had curled down in an expression of repugnance. So waste the people's money, I should. Scout had thrown up her hands in frustration. Master Yoda preferred not to use the Force for something as simple as arguing over a price. He said it was disrespectful to the Force and to one's opponent in commercial combat, but the real truth, Scout privately thought, was that Yoda was a gleeful, cranky, relentless bargainer who thought haggling was fun. So much of bargaining is about patience, and Bazaar-stand shysters on 100 planets had learned to their sorrow that one doesn't know what patience is until one has tried to outlast an 800-plus-year-old Jedi skinflint. We and Scout had already heard Master Yoda spend hours dickering over price at the last two junkyards, only to stump away unsatisfied, waggling his stick and muttering, leaving the poor owners looking as if they'd been slowly crushed in a garbage compactor. All of this is to say that Master Yoda was not just the legendary Jedi icon many made him out to be, but a person, and a fairly ordinary one at that. He wasn't even a perfect adherent to the light side. As he regularly stresses in Dark Rendezvous, Yoda made many mistakes over the course of his life, just as everyone else does. Indeed, these mistakes are the source of much of his wisdom. Failure is the greatest teacher after all, and Yoda has learned much from his many mistakes. It wasn't that he was able to adhere to the path of the Jedi so closely because he was more detached, or wise, or stoic than other beings. He was an ordinary person, and he had ordinary struggles in following the Jedi way. His strong adherence to the Jedi way is in spite of this, and it shows that the Jedi teachings are a philosophy not just for those gifted with superhuman calm, not just for the perfect, but one that's generally applicable despite what some might argue. It's by understanding Yoda through this lens, seeing him as he really is, that we can truly appreciate his wisdom about the path of the light side and its conflict with the dark side. Yoda has a lot to say about that topic, particularly in Dark Rendezvous. In the films, Yoda talks about the dark side a lot, but usually just to warn of its dangers and what leads to it. Basic, entry-level stuff. In Dark Rendezvous, however, Yoda gets into the nuances of the light side, dark side dichotomy, and he gets the opportunity because Dark Rendezvous presents a more compelling and layered argument for the dark side than we usually see. This argument is delivered by Asajj Ventress, who, after murdering Jai Marok and Mark Salim, makes her case to the dark side to their orphan Padawans before fleeing Findar Spaceport. To quote from the novel, "Let me tell you about the dark side," Ventress said quietly. "Typical Jedi propaganda, to name it so. Let me give it another name," she said. "Let's call it the truth." She paused to study Master Liam's body with something like sadness. "The truth is, you do care that this one is dead. You should. The truth is, you would be less than alive if you didn't. The truth is, the principles that seem right to an 800-odd-year-old hypocrite who may live forever make no sense for the rest of us who live and suffer and die in this world. Our time here is so short, so precious, so sweet. To turn your back on it, to crawl into your monastery and teach yourself not to feel. What a waste," Ventress said. Her voice shook. What a blasphemy. If the universe loves the good as the Jedi would have you believe, if the morality of the weak indeed governs the dance of the stars, if life is fair, why then am I alive while your master lies dead? The truth is, there is no good and no evil either, she said with her one smile. There is only life, or not. The powerful always trick the simple with the promise of power. That's the easiest way to bring someone to see the dark side. Give in to your anger. It's a simple trick and an effective one because it works. When people stop denying what they have always known in their hearts is true, when they come to some degree into their own power. But that is not the end of the journey, Ventress said. It is the beginning. That despair, that furious instant when your eyes open and you see the world for what it really is. A necessary first step. That's all. We've already dealt with a few parts of this argument, specifically the bit about Yoda being a separate case from ordinary people. We've also discussed how this understanding of Jedi detachment is wrong. The Jedi did care about death. They did feel for others and all the rest, and what they refused to do was to let that control them. They didn't deny themselves the passions of life, but refused to be consumed by them. But Ventress's argument here is still interesting because of its second half. Her argument that the Jedi's framing of morality, of stoic self-sacrifice being good and selfish ambition and hunger for power being evil, is baseless, and that these values aren't reflected in the wider universe. It's a nihilist argument, and you might even think of it as an atheistic take on the Force, as just another natural phenomenon, bereft of the metaphysical meaning the Jedi associate with it. It makes a simple, but stronger than usual case for the dark side. After all, if morality is nothing but a construct, and power and the choice to use it are all that dictate the course of events, then why not use your gifts as you feel compelled to? What does it matter if you do? In a later chapter, Yoda provides the answer. To quote from Dark Rendezvous again, "But what if they're right?" we cried out in anguish. What if the galaxy is dark? What if it's like Ventress says? We are born, we suffer, we die, and that is all. What if there is no plan? What if there is no goodness? What if we suffer blindly, trying to find a reason for the suffering, but we're just fooling ourselves, looking for hope that isn't there? What if there is nothing but stars, and the black space between them and the galaxy does not care whether we live or die? Yoda said, "It's true." The Padawans looked at him in shock. The Master's short legs swung back and forth, back and forth. "Perhaps," he added. He sighed. "Many days feel certain of a greater hope, I do. Some days, not so." He shrugged. "What difference does it make?" "Ventress was right," we said, shocked out of his anger. "No, wrong she is. As wrong as she can be," Yoda snorted. "Grief in the galaxy, is there?" "Oh yes, oceans of it. Worlds. And darkness?" Yoda pointed to the starscape on the projection table. "There you see. Darkness. Darkness everywhere, and a few points of light. If no plan there is, no fate, no destiny, no providence, no force, then what is left?" He looked at each of them in turn. "Nothing but our choices." "Asajj eats the darkness, and the darkness eats her back. Do what if you wish, we. Do that if you wish. To be Jedi is to face the truth and choose. Give off light or darkness, Padawan. Be a candle or the night, but choose." Yoda's answer is that it doesn't really matter whether morality is a fact of the universe or a social construct, whether the universe cares or not, whether or not the light is guaranteed to triumph, or if its battle against the dark side is pointless. The choices we make affect others, and because of that, they matter. It's never just a matter of using your gifts the way you want to. Any action you take in the world, even a world not bound together by the Force, has ripple effects that touch all around you. It matters, then, whether you choose, as Yoda puts it, to be a candle in the night, to embrace the cruelties of the universe, or to do your part, however small, to make things just a bit brighter. That is the true calling of the Jedi, Yoda contends, to face the infinite night and choose the light anyway. The other choice is what Yoda calls eating the darkness. This is a bizarre turn of phrase on the face of it, but it does actually get to the core of what the dark side is. Not just acknowledging the uncaring nature of the universe, but playing into it. Throughout Star Wars media, various ordinary impulses are associated with the dark side. Things like fear, anger, hatred, ambition, passion, and so on. This leads to a misconception that these sorts of emotions and impulses are the dark side, and that the Jedi teach to avoid feeling them. As Yoda mentioned in one of the passages we quoted earlier, not even he was immune to feeling these things, and the Jedi didn't try to repress or avoid feeling them. Indeed, the Jedi didn't even think of these impulses as bad things, not necessarily. They could be, in some circumstances, hatred especially, but also things like ambition, which could lead to greed and other vices, and things like fear, which can drive people to act selfishly and irrationally. But these impulses can also be good. Fear is a necessary instinct that helps us survive. Ambition can drive us to do good in the world, and even anger can be righteous and entirely justified, giving people motivation to make change in the world. Just feeling something isn't the dark side. The dark side is letting those feelings control you. This links back to a quote from Yoda we shared earlier, when he says that it's easier to turn to the dark side in the face of loss because the pain grows too great, and they eat the darkness to flee from it. That is the true danger of these impulses that lead to the dark side. Not feeling them, but fixating on them, refusing to let them go or put them in perspective so that they grow and eventually consume you. The feeling of loss grows so great that it creeps into every aspect of your life. Fear grows until it causes you to see everyone else as an enemy and a threat. Anger burns ever hotter until it melts justice into revenge and blinds you to the humanity of others. In every case, refusing to let go leads to the impulse growing and warping your perception, poisoning how you view the world and dictating your actions. All of it is painful, and that pain steadily grows until you choose to run from it, until you choose the dark side. That choice is not, as Ventress frames it, to come into your own power, free of restriction, not to open yourself up to life, but to cut yourself off from it, to forsake love and compassion and connection, to spare yourself the pain, leaving yourself with only dark, miserable emotions that, in the absence of compassion, drive you to selfishness and cruelty. It is seeing the darkness of the universe and choosing to become part of it, to feed on misery and spread it wherever you go, all the while rationalizing your actions as simply you using your power as you see fit, as the universe has left you free to do. But as Yoda says, when you make the choice to eat the darkness eats you back. It isolates you, deprives you of your humanity, inclines you to selfish, vindictive, and even sadistic actions, and it warps your perceptions as you try to justify what you've done. The dark side hollows out those who give into it. It blinds them to the full scope of life, and in the process, it makes life more empty. It's a miserable existence, as the stories of so many Sith Lords show, but it isn't the only choice you can make. The choice between light and dark plays a vital role in the main plot of Yoda: Dark Rendezvous. The novel is about a vital mission Yoda undertakes at the height of the Clone Wars, which begins when Yoda is given a message from Count Dooku. In this message, secretive and securely delivered, Dooku claims that he's becoming disillusioned with the dark side, disillusioned with the Sith, and that part of him longs to return to the Jedi. Obviously, the message is a trap meant to get Yoda killed, and Dooku thinks he's lying. But as Qui-Gon's spirit points out to Yoda, he only thinks he's lying, and the possibility of bringing Dooku back to the light, even after all is done, is enough to compel Yoda to travel across the galaxy to Vajun, a bitter, dark side saturated world of madness and acid rain, to meet with Dooku and try to redeem him. Yoda evades the various traps Dooku lays out for him, and in the end, is able to make it to a face-to-face meeting with the Count, where they discuss many of the things we've talked about in this video. In this discussion, Yoda tries an unexpected approach to turning Dooku back to the light. He asks the fallen Jedi to turn him to the dark side. Dooku, though taken aback, plays along, doing his best to sell Yoda on the power the dark side can offer. But as he soon learns, the one power Yoda is interested in is the kind the dark side can never give. It's a quote from the novel, "But another way to solve the war there is. If you will not join me, perhaps join with you I should. Tell me more," Yoda said testily. "If power over beings need I not, what else can your dark side do for me?" "What do you want?" Dooku snapped. "Tell me what you want and I will show you how the dark side can help you achieve it. Do you want friends? The dark side can compel them for you. Lovers? The dark side understands passion in a way you never have. Do you want riches, endless life, deep wisdom? I want..." Yoda held up the flower in his hand and took another sniff. "I want a rose." "Be serious," Dooku said impatiently. "Serious am I," Yoda cried. He bounced to his feet. Standing on the desktop, he was almost as tall as Dooku. He held the flower imperiously toward his former pupil. "Another rose. Make for me." "The dark side springs from the heart," Dooku said. "It isn't a handbook for cheap conjurer's tricks." "But like this trick do I," Yoda said. "The trick that brings the flower from the ground. The trick that sets the sun on fire. The Force is not magic. I can't create a flower out of thin air. Nobody can. Not you. Not the Lord of the Sith." Yoda blinked. "My Force does. Binds every living thing, the Force, I understand." "Master, these are games of words. The Force is as it always has been. The dark side is not a different energy. To use it is only to open yourself to new ways to command that energy that have to do with the hearts of beings. Want something else. Want power. Power, have I. Want wealth. Wealth, I need not. Want to be safe," Dooku said in frustration. "Want to be free from fear." "I will never be safe," Yoda said. He turned away from Dooku, a shapeless bundle under his battered, acid-eaten cloak. "The universe is large and cold and very dark. That is the truth. What I love, taken from me will be, late or soon, and no power is there, dark or light, that can save me." The universe, as Yoda says, is dark, empty, full of pain and suffering, and this was something adherents of both the light and dark sides would face. The difference is that those on the dark side ran from it, cut themselves off from the world around them, ate the darkness in the mistaken belief that being part of the darkness would insulate them from its ravages, keep them safe and free from pain and fear at the cost of those around them. But the truth was, no matter what choice you make, nothing will spare you the pain, the fear, or the insecurity. Indeed, the choice of the dark side made those things worse. Only the harder but more rewarding choice, the choice of the Jedi, could help. To accept this is how the universe is, and to choose life all the same. The choice of the Jedi is to see the spots of light in the vast darkness of the universe, to see beauty and compassion and the fullness of life, to embrace these things and to spread them in whatever small ways you can. The wisdom of Yoda is to embrace the truth of life rather than the lies of the dark side. In the canon expanded universe novel Master and Apprentice, Qui-Gon Jinn teaches Obi-Wan a similar lesson to what Yoda teaches here. It matters which side we choose, even if there will never be more light than darkness. Even if there can be no more joy in the galaxy than there is pain. For every action we undertake, for every word we speak, for every life we touch, it matters. I don't turn toward the light because it means someday I'll win some sort of cosmic game. I turn toward it because it is the light. Yoda challenges his students to make the same choice, to choose the Force as it's meant to be, to choose the light side, to choose life. It isn't an easy choice to make, but it makes a difference, whether the universe cares or not, because choosing the light impacts all other living things, and for all of them, it makes the cold, uncaring universe just a little bit brighter. And as Yoda reinforces, it's a choice that you're always free to make, no matter what you've done. In Dark Rendezvous, Yoda is unsuccessful at redeeming Dooku. He seems to make some progress, but it's all erased when Dooku realizes that Anakin Skywalker has followed Yoda to Vajun, and his jealousy and hatred for Anakin drive a wedge between him and his former master. Dooku chooses to keep eating the darkness, to continue his quest for power and control. We all know how that story ends. The darkness eats Dooku back, and before long, it demands the Count's life. But Yoda's wisdom remains, and Dooku's fate was not inevitable. As far gone as he was, there was a scant possibility that he too could have been saved. It's a reminder of one of the most fundamental messages of Star Wars, that there's no such thing as being too far gone, and that you can always choose the light. To quote one last time from Dark Rendezvous, Yoda snapped his fingers. The empty universe, where is it now? Alone are you, Count, and no one your master. Each instant, the universe annihilates itself and starts again. He poked Dooku in the chest with his stick, hard. Choose and start again. So that's our look at some of the wisdom of Yoda and how the Jedi Order's most famous master can still teach us plenty about the light side. But what do you think? If you've read Dark Rendezvous, what do you think of it? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.